A game that gave us so much. Alabama 20, Texas 19, a Quinn Ewers injury, a Bryce Young comeback, the Longhorns playing well enough defensively to win the game, and yet they got into scoring position. 6 out of their 11 full drives, they come out with 19 points out of those 6 scoring opportunities in a 1-point loss that does end up proving to be very significant. Texas covers, so hey, I'll wear that one. You know, I dropped it here. I dropped it on
not a great day for Lock Unity.
The early edge. Yeah. I mean, it was just HQ. I will wear that one, but I will say that that Texas's effort here, though commendable, comes with plenty of criticism, but it also comes with the acknowledgement that it is all because of Quinn Ewers, who looked awesome in his very, very, very small sample size in the first quarter, getting knocked out with what Steve Sarkisian called a clavicle sprain. They were cooking, boys. I thought this game was going to be done in like 3.5 hours and Fox would be furious. But luckily, with all the drama in the second half, we made it almost a full 4 hours as the Fox execs would intend. Alabama 20, Texas 19. Is there any super positive to come from this for either team right now?
It depends on how long Quinn Ewers is out. It's hard to there's obviously moral victories in hanging tough with Alabama after losing your starting quarterback early in the game. And the fact that for me, the biggest takeaway is how kind of good Texas's defense looked overall. They gave up the one long run, which really reminded me of what we saw so much from them last year. But other than that, they were physical, they were fast, they were flying to the ball, they played well. And I feel like that's a good sign for them going forward. But if Ewers is out for a while, I mean, Card played well in his place, but Card was banged up too. And it's going to be kind of interesting to see how that goes forward. But this is suddenly a Texas team that I think I have a higher estimation of going forward, as long as they keep the same kind of intensity that they showed today. And of course, with college football teams, that's always a question. Are you just getting up for the big game and let it down when you play? Who are they playing next week? UTSA? Or is there going to be wouldn't it be hilarious letdown? Or is that just what they are this year?
I think you could take away that Texas defense is ahead of schedule, right?
Yeah.
And we can talk about how Bama's offense is not in sync right now and why that is, and probably will do so as soon as we get done talking about Texas here in about 2 minutes. But that Texas defense was fast. It was physical. It communicated much better on the back end, I think, than it did last year. Last year, you would have guys just running wide open. And this year, I'm not really convinced Bama's offensive line is amazing right now after watching them, but credit to Texas's defensive line for getting consistent pressure on them, and credit them on the back end for not allowing that many explosive plays. They allowed a couple, but not a ton. So I really thought Texas defense was impressive. Sark, from a play calling standpoint, I loved it, especially when he had Ewers in there. He was emptying the clip. Sark, from a game management standpoint, now, he was not the worst guy on the day. We'll talk about Narduzzi in a little bit. But, really, I think when you have your backup quarterback down there and you decide to kick those short field goals, ask Brian Harsin, short field goals do not beat Alabama. Not going for 2 doesn't beat Alabama. Now, look, you could tell me, hey, we're not going to go for it because we have a backup quarterback. I think the counter to that is, how many more times do you actually expect to get down here this close with your backup quarterback? You need to sort of seize the momentum when you had the shot. And I think those field goals were not the right choice. And I think the book backs me up on that.
The book being the sort of expected points added?
Yeah, right.
Okay. I thought that Texas A&M's offense was being held together as much as possible by duct tape once Quinn Ewers left the game. I thought it was very obvious once Ewers was gone. It's okay, all right, we're going to do whatever we can. And something that was allowed by, as you mentioned, the Texas's defense success. So a lot of credit on the broadcast, and some of the credit around the conversation was going to Gary Patterson. Do you assign? Uncle Gary has been nothing but indifferent to me throughout our extended career together. And I'm willing to say that's an easy credit that's given. I almost want to look at I almost want to look at the players, especially the ones that are 3 and 4 year players. But I don't know, man, that just might have been them deciding that they were not going to get pushed around, an incredible individual and also unit effort by those Texas players. But Gary Patterson also has a great line of success of game planning, and he had a long time to prepare for this. And so where do you assign some of that credit there in terms of Texas's defense looking good?
I have no idea. I mean, they played well. I don't know. Gary Patterson probably deserves some of the credit for sure. The players probably deserve more of the credit. I think that honestly, Alabama, it reminds me of last year. And again, we'll probably get into this more because like Alabama, there are some concerns about that team after what I saw today. And that offensive line was getting beat up pretty good. Bryce Young was kind of having to go like, I don't know, whatever
superhero mode.
Yeah, he was kind of having to do everything on his own
out there.
Yeah,
and I'm saying that like he has to literally put the offense on his back. Like he's making people not named Jahmyr Gibbs look better because there's nothing that's extremely impressive. The one run by Just McClellan was great.
That one blitz Jahmyr Gibbs didn't pick up from the linebacker in the A gap.
He got his ass benched.
Killed.
He wasn't even in there for passing downs for like a quarter and a half. They couldn't even put him out there. This is a troublesome offense right now. Thankfully, they have one of the most outstanding players in the entire sport at quarterback, or else I don't know how Alabama would be able to accomplish all of the goals that they still have and that they still have in their sights after being able to escape with the win.
But I legitimately have concerns because that offensive line was bad, and we saw it be bad in a lot of games last year, including the Georgia game, the Florida game a few times. There's no receiver. Like, who's the number one receiver on that team right now? Nobody has stepped forward. Jermaine Burton looks like a guy who got run out of Georgia, not a guy that left Georgia on his own. It's just, I look around, it's like, I feel like it's Bryce Young and 10 other guys right now.
I agree with you, Tom. I also think that they don't have a guy to take the top off the defense. And that guy's supposed to be Tyler Harrell, but is he banged up right now? He didn't play. So I'm interested to see, how does this offense look like when you have, Tyler Harrell is one of the absolute fastest guys in all of college football. So that's going to be a situation where on play action, maybe when they get him back, that could be a game changer type guy for the Tide if all works out in the best case scenario. But, we heard that basically like they didn't like that offensive line coach last year, and maybe having the new offensive line coach would help. They didn't look that much better. And I got to tell you, man, I don't like this offense under Bill O'Brien. Everything just looks like it's more laborious. And I'm not into it. Bama's had really nice offenses ever since Kiffin. And clearly some of this is personnel related. I'm not a dummy to that fact, but is he getting through to these guys the same way? They make a lot more mistakes, it seems, than they did before Bill O'Brien got there. And I do kind of wonder if it's all personnel, man. Like they got a lot of talented guys on that roster. The inexperience at receiver, though, is probably even more the offensive line to me. The fact that everything just feels like it's late. And I know Bryce is a very fast processor, so it's not Bryce. It's he doesn't trust these guys yet to be where they're supposed to be, and for good reason. I mean, like there was a couple times he almost threw picks today because the dude was not in the right spot. The one to, the freshman from Alabama, the short kid, their slot. So he runs. Prentice? Correct. Yeah. So Prentice is supposed to sit, right? And he continues on his route, and it looks like Bryce throws the ball behind him. Bryce put the ball where it's supposed to be. He's supposed to spin him out against zone, right? So to me, that is a concern. Until Bryce gets more chemistry with these receivers, I'm not really sure Bama's offense is going to function all that smoothly, but there are questions here.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point, too, because if you just look at this game, who was the play caller for Alabama when that offense was unstoppable? Sark. Who was the guy calling plays today that kept Texas in a game against Alabama with his backup QB? Yeah, you can question some of the decisions he made, like as far as the red zone and kicking the field goals, but it was him calling plays that kept that team in that game the entire day. So there was a direct comparison watching that game.
No doubt about it.
Alabama moving forward, probably going to give up number one in the polls.
Yes, and it should.
Yeah.
You would take Georgia over Bama tomorrow, right? If they had to play?
Yes.
Like not 4 months from now, but if they had to line up and play a game tomorrow, Georgia looks like they have their stuff together a little bit more than Bama does right now.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see any of Georgia today. They won 33-0 against Samford, which honestly seems a little light to me. That coach that they played,
the coach they played is the first guy ever to give Kirby Smart a job. So I figured they would not run it up on Samford.
Oh yeah, it was 30-0 at halftime. That's why, like, for me, the important stat from Georgia is actually more of a dual game stat where Georgia has outscored its first two opponents 58-3 in the first half. Because in both second halves, the game has been over and all they've done is cruise to victories. They treated Oregon like they treated Samford, like they're going to treat the next opponent and the next opponent. They're going to be up 30 points at halftime against all these guys and then just put in the backups, run the ball, and let the clock bleed. It's going to be the Georgia way of doing things all the way through the rest of the regular season.
And yet I think there are some questions if Georgia faces another elite team based on what I saw against Oregon, right? That average depth of target for Stetson Bennett, who was extremely good at operating what they did, and was they're a killing machine.
Boo.
It's 5 yards. I mean,
college football.
Hey,
all right.
Every single yard counts, not
does.
just the ones in the balls in the air. The ones after the catch count too, just the same.
The Yak Master.
So, hey,
he wills him. He's like a chess master, moving his pieces across the board. You don't always go vertical. Sometimes you go left. Sometimes you go right. Sometimes you move backwards.
So the roughing the passer that was targeting, that was not roughing the passer or targeting, that was ultimately ruled an incomplete pass, even though the Texas fans thought it was a safety. Oh, what do we make of that cluster? You know what? That happened right there.
What did the ref say after the review? Like he said, I was told the wrong thing. What did he say?
He said, I misspoke. Man came out here and was like, oh, I listen, it's not targeting.
I misunderstood what was said to me.
I misunderstood. I misunderstood what was said to me. It's an incomplete pass, which, by the way, it was an incomplete pass, right? I mean, they showed us the review. Bryce Young was never down. Looked like it could have been a safety, but he fell on top of the Texas defender and got the ball out. Right? All's well that ends well. What do you make of it?
But if it is roughing the passer or whatever, then why the hell is it still fourth down?
Because it's an incomplete pass. No, they said there's no roughing the passer. There's no targeting.
Can you overturn roughing the passer?
You can if they basically if you're okay. The way they did this, right? They called roughing the passer on the field, and then after realizing what a bad call they made, I think they realized they're like, oh well, we called roughing the passer targeting, but we really meant to say we misspoke was just targeting, right? So it's not roughing the passer, but I thought it should have been like
a safety.
I thought,
intentional grounding or something like that.
Yeah, that was pretty wild.
I saw refs say lots of weird things today. From the I misunderstood what was said to me in the Virginia-Illinois game. A ref stopped the play right before the snap and literally turned around and told the band in the student section to stop playing while the other team had the ball. It was just a very weird day for refs all over the country.
We had bottles and shoes thrown on the field in different screens. I saw both bottles and shoes thrown onto the field. Stop the play. Incredible. All right. Any last word? We've got so much to get to. Any last word on Alabama, Texas, or any thoughts before we do?
Is anybody beating Alabama in the West, even after what you saw today?
Like,
Alabama
to win the division, or or will Bama go undefeated in the West?
Will they go undefeated?
I really need to look at their schedule and the timing because I feel like they will get better as the season goes on.